This is the 43rd episode of the Effective Executive podcast and uh, video. And this week, uh, I wanted to talk about how doing things on a small scale can really save you as an executive. And I started my career with an industrial distributor. I was in sales, and then I moved on after I got my master's uh, to the home office of a family owned industrial distributor. About, I'm going to say, around 200 employees or so. And it had 8 locations around uh, uh, a couple states. And the setup was basically you had the owner was the chief executive, if you will, and his son was the vice president of marketing. And one of the things I was put in charge of when I kind of my first foray into management was inventory, being the inventory or purchasing manager. And uh, one thing that I learned very quickly was that the inventory manager and the marketing person did not share, at least in this case, the same aim. We weren't rewarded on the same things. We weren't, uh, you know, our aims were completely different the way that things were set up. And I remember constantly the 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 son of the owner, the vice president of marketing, coming to me and saying, if we're going to be in the business, of industrial distribution, we have to have die springs. And I remember that was one of the early ones. So, you went out and you spent probably today's dollars about, I don't know, 5 or 10 grand and put in a bunch of die springs, sorted sizes and colors and things of that sort. No big deal. Then we put in, the vice president marketing came in and said, hey, we need this paint system. And I'm going to say we spent anywhere from 60 to, in today's dollar, 60 to 100 grand on this paint system. And that was the one that kind of got me suspicious about what was going on. Because what I found was, first of all, I went back and looked at the data. I was, 26 years old, and found that the die springs that we had ordered we hadn't had any orders for them. And so I thought, okay, well, why are we having these die springs there? Then with the paint, it was a lot more expensive. And so, 60 to 80 grand, I kind of started tracking it and saw that the paint was not selling. The salespeople thought it was a bad idea. And there were a couple, maybe salespeople in there that were advocates of it, but not many. And then the need, and it gets very hard. I know some of you probably have, or maybe even currently working in a family-owned business. It's hard to go up against the owner's son or daughter in a particular business, but he wanted to purchase about $250,000 worth of abrasive. So now I'm getting into a little bit more of the detail of these abrasives that he wanted to purchase. And I said, well, how did you come up with this list of all these ones you want to buy? And he said, well, those are the ones that are sold all over the country. And, we want to buy all of these different types. I said, but do we have any, demand here for them? And as I started to look through, most of them were things that none of our customers used. So I started to push back, because remember, as a purchasing manager, inventory manager, my job was to make sure that we had the right inventory there, and we didn't have unlimited money. It was still a relatively, small, medium-sized business. And so I pushed back on it. We didn't get all of the abrasives that they wanted off of this particular order. Uh, but you have restocking fees for some of this stuff. Even the die springs, the paint. If you have to send them back to the vendor, it would cost you a certain amount of money to just send them back. So the next thing that came to me was, at the time, a company called Mitutoyo does measuring tools, was backed up in orders. And what was being sold to me by the vice president of marketing, the son, and the vendor was that you needed to buy $500,000 worth of tools because they will only ship out of Japan 10% of that number. And I'm sitting there thinking, but I still have a $500,000 in today's dollars order that's going out there. So this obviously created a lot of friction associated with this adversarial relationship between the vice president of marketing and myself. Could talk about this in terms of an aim and having a shared aim too, but I'm not going to go there for this thing. But one of the things that I would learn later was that anytime you make a change as an executive, if you want to try a new product, a new service, what software development, organizational design, data, whatever it is, that you should do it on a small scale. And this will save you both money and politically, in this case. That, if we would have tried some of these things out or thought through it, we could try these things out, do something on a small scale, see if we get any traction on them before we start to spend large sums of money on anything. And I found this, it was taught to me through the work of W. Edwards Deming. And, it makes perfect sense. And I'm sure other people were probably doing it. But anyway, it became a staple of every thing I did pretty much after that whole experience. So if you want to save yourself a lot of heartache and money within your organization, when somebody has an idea, don't dismiss it, because that will kill creativity too within your organization. You put it down. It may not be one of your top 10, but keep it, because that person or group of people thought it was a good idea, and by virtue of hanging on to that idea, it might be a good one, but it may not. It may be number 10 on the list of things that you think would be successful within the organization. But you can do these things for the most part on a small scale. You don't have to go out and blow up a whole system. You can begin to learn whether it's something that your market wants, if it's a new product or service. You see this, actually you see this all the time on Shark Tank. People go, "Oh, I have this great idea," and then, well, what's your sales? Well, we don't have any. I would say, well, it's hard to invest in something that has zero sales. And these are things that happen within organizations on a consistent basis. I've seen millions, tens of millions of dollars wasted in large organizations where, the salespeople come back and said, "Oh, well, we need this new platform, for our software system." And, off the executives go, "Okay, we'll do that." And they build the system and nobody buys it. So there are ways to go about things. You just have to think through them, figure out how you can do it on a small scale. So that's what I wanted to communicate this week. I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to devote an episode to thinking in terms of doing things on a small scale because it will save you in the long run.